Hello, everyone. Welcome to participation to the International Conference on Trade and Security in 2021. My name is SangHee Park. I am in charge of Export Control Policy Division of the MOTI, Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy. My position is the director of this division. The topics I had prepared is that Korean export control system and policy recommendation for Asian countries. Before I start, I'd like to tell you that it is very nice to meet you, although this presentation is not a real-time presentation, but a pre-recorded video due to COVID-19. My presentation will be composed of 3 agendas. As you can see, Korea's export control policy and international export control policy regime will be touched upon, then policy recommendation will be followed. Let me begin my presentation with Korea's export control policy rules and regulation. First of all, I'd like to emphasize international standards. Korea is operating an export licensing system in accordance with international standards. We control the export of items that have high potential of being diverted into weapons in order to protect international peace and national security. Our legal grounds are Foreign Trade Act, Public Notice on Trade of Strategic Items, Defense Acquisition Program Act, Nuclear Safety Act. Strategic items Korea controls means any goods, software, and technology that have a high potential of being appropriated for manufacturing, developing, or using weapons of mass destruction or conventional weapons. You can understand the strategic items, last paragraph of this slide, as a sort of common control list of the EAR, Export Administration Regulation in the USA. At this slide, I'd like to mention the licensing agencies and licensing procedures. Licensing agencies depends on controlled items. MOTI, Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, controls dual-use items, and SSC, Nuclear Safety and Security Commission, controls nuclear use items. DAPA, Defense Acquisition Program Administration, controls military use items. As for license types, there are individual license, comprehensive license, catch-all license, and so on. With regard to licensing procedures, there are 4 steps. The first step is classification, the second is license application, the third, review, and the final step is approval or denial. I will elaborate classification of items, first step of Korea's license procedure at this slide. To begin with, companies apply for professional classification or self-classification through YesTrade system. YesTrade system is a sort of internet-based online working platform. You can find out YesTrade function and roles on www.yestrade.go.kr. There are 2 types of classification in Korea. One is self-classification. Companies enter item information on YesTrade self-classification system and submit answers to questions on specifications. Companies can immediately check if the item falls under the category of strategic items, and then the the classification results will be issued. The other is professional classification. Companies provide detailed information about an item by a YesTrade professional classification system. KOSTI's technical experts determine whether the item constitutes a controlled strategic item or not. They will issue the classification results. This will be made free of charge. For your reference, KOSTI is an acronym of Korea Strategic Agency of Trade and Industry. You can also visit the KOSTI's website on www.kosti.or.kr. MOTI is working very closely with the KOSTI. At this slide, I will talk about examination and review process in detail. If companies apply for export license, selecting items and export license types via YesTrade, then licensing officers review base documents, the exporter and counterparty end user against assessment criteria. When there is no problem, they will issue an export license through YesTrade. Applicants can check the progress of license review in real time. Applicants will be informed of supplementary documents to submit, and they will receive examination results. All these workflows are being made on YesTrade system. When it comes to assessment criteria, there are 7 criteria. I will point out 3 important things for time saving. The third, importance, technological levels, and military and diplomatic sensitivity is important criterion. The fifth, reliability of the purpose of use by the buyer, ultimate consignee, and end user is one of important criteria. The seventh, whether the exporter, buyer, ultimate consignee, and end user are included in denial list or not is also key point. Let me also highlight the post-control as one of the important components of Korea's export control policy. Illegal export of strategic item is subject to strict penalties according to Foreign Trade Act. In case of criminal punishment, there will be up to 7 years of imprisonment or a fine of up to 5 times the value of the transaction. In case of administrative punishment, there will be prohibition on trade of strategic item for up to 3 years, order to receive a mandatory training and education. At this slide, I'd like to inform you of our recent developments regarding Korea's export control policy. Korea is annually updating our system by amending public notice on trades of strategic items in order to keep pace with international regulation trends. It is necessary to amend the public notice on trade of strategic items in response to decisions by international export control regimes and corporate demands. Major changes, which is worthy of note, will be the expansion of country classification. Currently, the number of country categories is 3, and it will be 4. That is to say, Korea is trying to introduce the category of countries of concern. Tighter controls are imposed on high-risk countries, as such destinations are classified as countries of concern. requiring special restrictions on the export of military goods, chemical products. We are making effort to pursue UN Security Council resolution. Secondly, Korea will raise awareness of companies over catch-all provisions. Korea government will provide a checklist of catch-all controls and extensive list of importers requiring verification. The third, Korea will streamline the license application process for repeated exports. These amendments will be completed by December this year. My second agenda, which I want to explain to you, is the international export regimes. I think you are familiar with this. However, I'd like for you to take a look at these international export regimes because these regimes and treaties play a crucial role, as I mentioned at this first slide. There are two types of international rules for export control. The left side of this slide, you can see multilateral export control regime, and the right side of this slide, you can see control through treaties. As for multilateral export control regimes, there are four. The Wassenaar Arrangement, Nuclear Supplies Group NSG, Australia Group AG, Missile Technology Control Regime MTCR. For example, the Wassenaar Arrangement was established in 1996. The number of member states is 42. In Korea, joined the Wassenaar Arrangement in 1996. As you can see, Korea joined all four international control regimes. Regarding control through treaties, there are major two treaties: Chemical Weapons Convention, CWC, and Biological Weapons Convention. Please focus on the lower part of this slide where some words are written in blue colors. The international regime establishes the basic principles of export control, the product performance, and specifications. The government of member countries reflect and enforce specific procedures and standards in their own domestic laws. My final topic is a sort of policy recommendation because today's conference main participants are Asian countries. Prior to this policy recommendation, let me say briefly about the trade security environment. First, along with intensifying competition for technological advantages, the strengthening of export control is expected to be continued for a longer time. Secondly, scope of export control is expanding from traditional strategic items to non-strategic goods, foreign investments, and advanced technologies. The third, economic blockade is deepening. Against this security environment, I'd like to come up with a couple of policy recommendations. From the government point of view, I think it needs to identify the latest trends in international security and export control. Second, it needs to expand cooperation with like-minded countries. The third, it needs to improve systems to secure the effectiveness of the export control system. From the corporation's point of view, I think it needs to minimize risks by complying international export control law, including domestic law. Secondly, it needs to identify export control system and to increase its responsiveness. Third, it needs to introduce an internal compliance program. Thank you very much for your attention. Please don't hesitate to email me if you have any questions with regard to my presentation. I'll feedback to you as soon as possible. My email address, as you can see, is psh33@motie.go.kr. Thank you again for watching my presentation. I hope we will be able to meet face-to-face next time when COVID-19 is over. Thank you.